In the heat of the American Revolution, when men were collapsing under the burning sun, one woman stepped forward. She was called Molly Pitcher. At first, she carried water to thirsty soldiers, but when the cannons fell silent and her husband collapsed, she took his place. With fire in her hands and courage in her heart, Molly loaded the cannon and turned into a legend. This is the story of the woman who fought like a soldier and became an icon of American freedom. In the middle of the 18th century, in a quiet town of New Jersey, a girl was born who would one day be remembered as a hero of the American Revolution. Her real name was Mary Ludwig, and no one could have guessed that she would later earn the legendary title Molly Pitcher. She was not born into wealth or fame. She was the daughter of a simple family, raised with ordinary dreams, yet her life would become part of extraordinary history. Mary's early life was tough. Her parents worked hard, and from a young age she learned the value of determination. Life in colonial America was never easy, especially for women. Girls were often expected to help in the house, cook, clean, and raise children. But Mary was strong in spirit. She grew up watching her father work the land and her mother manage the household. This gave her both physical endurance and mental courage. By the time she was a teenager, Mary had learned how to carry heavy buckets of water, chop wood, and manage farm chores. She was not delicate or fragile. She was strong, sturdy, and determined. These qualities, unnoticed at the time, would one day save lives on a battlefield. As Mary grew older, she worked as a servant to earn money. Like many women of her class, her opportunities were limited, but she dreamed of a stable home and family. Eventually, she married William Hays, a barber who later joined the Continental Army when the Revolutionary War broke out. The couple had a modest life, but the war would soon change everything. When William went off to serve with General George Washington's army, Mary refused to stay behind. Many wives of soldiers followed their husbands to military camps, helping as cooks, laundresses, or nurses. Mary was one of them. She became part of the group of women known as camp followers. These women were not soldiers, but they were vital to the army's survival. They washed clothes, mended uniforms, cooked meals, and cared for the sick and wounded. Without them, many soldiers would have starved or fallen ill. Mary proved to be especially hard-working. She carried endless buckets of water for cooking, washing, and drinking. Soldiers began to recognize her as a dependable presence. Whenever the army camped, she was there, moving tirelessly between tents, wagons, and wells. Her strong arms and tireless energy earned her respect. Soon, she became known among the soldiers as Molly. This was a common nickname for women named Mary. One day, when soldiers called out for water during a hot summer drill, Mary rushed with her pitcher. "Here comes Molly with the pitcher," someone shouted. And so, the name Molly Pitcher was born. At the time, she never imagined that this nickname would one day become a legend. Life in the army camp was harsh. Food was often scarce, disease spread quickly, and the weather could be brutal. Mary saw men collapse from hunger and fever. She worked day and night, nursing the sick and offering comfort to the wounded. She was not afraid of blood or suffering. Many soldiers said that Molly's presence gave them strength because she always had a kind word, a bit of food, or a drink of fresh water when they needed it most. By 1778, the war for independence was raging fiercely. The British Army was powerful and well-trained, while Washington's Continental Army was often hungry, poorly clothed, and exhausted. But they had spirit, and they had determination. Mary and William were with the army as it prepared for one of the most important battles of the Revolution, the Battle of Monmouth in New Jersey. The summer of 1778 was brutally hot. The sun scorched the earth, and the soldiers suffered from thirst as they marched. Mary carried her pitcher from camp to camp, giving water to anyone who asked. She often walked through fields under fire, with cannonballs flying and muskets cracking, just to deliver water to a wounded or weary man. In those days, Women were not expected to stand on the battlefield. But Mary did not think about fear. She only thought about helping. When soldiers collapsed from heat, she lifted their heads and poured water on their lips. When cannons thundered, she ran closer to bring water to the artillery crews. To her, the battlefield was simply another place where she could serve. Yet destiny had greater plans for her. At Monmouth, Molly Pitcher's courage would go far beyond carrying water. She would step into history, forever remembered as the woman who fought beside men with a cannon in her hands. The battlefield was burning under the summer sun. The date was June 28, 1778, and the place was Monmouth, New Jersey. The American and British armies faced each other in one of the largest battles of the Revolutionary War. The heat was so intense that dozens of men fell from sunstroke before a single musket fired. In the middle of this chaos stood Mary Ludwig Hays, now known to her fellow soldiers as Molly Pitcher. Her husband, William, had just collapsed beside a cannon. The crew was disorganized, the enemy was advancing, and time was running out. Without hesitation, Molly picked up the ramrod and took her husband's place. The soldiers around her froze in surprise. A woman at the cannon? This was unheard of. But Molly had no time to think about tradition or fear. She had spent months carrying water to these men. She had watched them suffer, fight, and bleed. Now, when they needed her most, she would not step back. With determination blazing in her eyes, she loaded the cannon. Powder, ball, ram. Her hands moved quickly. The artillery crew rallied around her, and together they fired. The cannon roared, shaking the ground. Smoke billowed into the sky, and Molly's figure stood firm among the men. Each time the cannon fired, she braced herself against the recoil. Sweat poured down her face, but she never stopped. When a cannonball tore through her skirts, ripping the fabric but missing her body, she did not flinch. "Well," she is said to have muttered, "that could have been worse." Then she kept loading and firing. The sight of Molly inspired everyone nearby. Soldiers who were weak from heat found new strength when they saw her. If a woman could stand in the middle of battle, unafraid of cannon fire, then surely men could fight on as well. Her courage spread like fire across the field. For hours the battle raged. The British forces pushed hard, but the Americans stood their ground. Molly moved tirelessly, carrying water, loading cannons, and even helping the wounded. Some accounts say that she ran to fetch water from a spring under heavy fire, risking her life just to keep the cannons cool. General George Washington himself is believed to have witnessed her bravery. One story says that he asked about the woman fighting with the artillery, and when he learned it was Mary Hays, he later praised her courage. Though details differ, what is certain is that Molly's actions became the talk of the army. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Your support inspires us to create even better videos. As the sun set on Monmouth, the battle ended in a stalemate, but the Continental Army had proven it could hold its own against the British. For Molly, it was more than a victory. She had stepped out of the shadows of anonymity and into the pages of history. After the battle, when the smoke cleared and the soldiers rested, Molly returned to her husband's side. William had survived, though weakened. But from that day on, she was no longer just Mary Ludwig Hays, the wife of a barber. She was Molly Pitcher, the woman who fired the cannon. Her fame spread quickly. Stories of her courage traveled from camp to camp. Some exaggerated, some simplified, but all agreed on one thing. She had shown remarkable bravery in the face of danger. The soldiers admired her, and the people back home were inspired. After the war, Molly returned to a quieter life. She and William settled in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. She worked hard, raised a family, and lived as many women of her time did. But the memory of her bravery never faded. Locals often spoke of her as the woman who had stood on the battlefield with the men. In 1822, The Pennsylvania government recognized her service and awarded her a pension of $40 a year. It was a small amount, but it was also a symbol. For the first time, a woman was officially honored for her role in the Revolutionary War.